Good morning and welcome to the final of our Fall Fridays at Findlay series. We have a wonderful group this morning for what I know is going to be a most interesting program. We'd like to thank our friends from First Federal for their sponsorship of the series this year. Please join me in thanking them. And you all know the topic, and I know are very excited to hear from our panelists. Before we hear from them, I do want to recognize Coach Charlie Ernst and the whole current, the next future national championship team. Right? So I'd like Coach Charlie Ernst and his young men to please stand and be recognized. Gentlemen. You can come, and we hope you all will come and see the Oilers kick off this. They kick off the season with an away game, but the first home game is November 17th when the Oilers take on Saginaw Valley, and we hope that all of you will be here. A few things I want to let you know is it is November now, and that means that we are upon the season of thanks with Thanksgiving this month, and of course Christmas quickly following, and of course in showing a spirit of gratitude, you will be given an opportunity to do that to help our current and future students, faculty, and staff. Check your mailboxes very soon, and you'll receive some nice letters from Dr. Fell or from me or perhaps from Brandy Larita, our athletic director, encouraging you to think of our students as you do your year-end giving. And we very, very much appreciate whatever support you'd like to give. I wanted to let you know there are cards on your table with the program for today that also list our spring dates. Absolutely delighted from the time that we printed those to now. We do have January 25th confirmed. We will be back in Weinbrenner, and Dr. Julia Sloan, a cross-cultural and strategic thinking consultant and principal owner and author, will be our guest that day, and encourage all of you to come and join us for that. And on March 29th, we have David Ryan Polgar, also a nationally known writer and a tech ethicist. And I looked at much of what he has written and spoken about, and it's most timely in today's world. So we hope that you will join us for those. And then we have another one pending for April 26th. So please save those dates on your calendar. We'll have information going out soon, and hope to see you at all three of those. At this time, I would like to bring to the podium Leanna Burke to give our blessing. Leanna is from Columbus, Ohio. She is a sophomore pre-physical therapy major and very active in our campus ministries. Following Leanna, we have a short video clip of highlights from the 2009 season. And immediately following that, President Fell will introduce our panel. By the way, while you're putting dates on your calendars, I see some of you pulling out your phones to do that right now. While you're putting dates, please put December 29th. We play Olivet at home. The entire championship team has been invited back for that day to be recognized, as well as all men's basketball alumni. Nate Hyde tells me that it's going to be a pretty active time in many of the local businesses before and after the game. So it would be a fun game for you to bring visiting relatives and family members who may be home for the holidays. So please include that on your list of dates. So at this time, Leanna, would you please come and bless our food?
Dear Lord, thank you for blessing us with this beautiful day and allowing us to gather here in fellowship with one another. Today, we want to give thanks for the food before us, but keep in our thoughts those who go without. Bless the following discussion, we pray. Help us to reflect on how we can be champions for you in our daily lives. As we grow with one another and in you, let us always remember to do all things with love and kindness. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Panelists will join me. I need a moment so that I'm not crying when I introduce them. We are delighted to have all of you here this morning to celebrate this milestone in the history of the University of Findlay. We have champions delivering every day, but that special year remains part of our history, and we're very proud of it. So today we have a panel of experts on the topic of championship. Building a Championship Team Reflections on the 2009 NCAA National Championship Men's Basketball Team. That is the title for today. The panel will be moderated by Jim Heller, who formerly broadcast Oilers men's basketball games for over a decade, including the 8-9 championship season. He now broadcasts at the University of Toledo women's basketball games, and for many years also served as network host for UT Rocket football. Ken Vaupel is a longtime Oilers basketball fan and financial supporter of the Oilers team through the Kenneth and Lori Vaupel Family Basketball Endowment. He serves as CEO and co-owner of Alfa-Green Supreme, a leading supplier of dehydrated alfalfa products. Nathan Hyde was a guard on the championship team and played for the Oilers from 2007 to 2011, where he was an outstanding player, earning multiple honors from GLIAC and NCAA Division II. He ranks third in UF history for three-pointers. Nathan received his Bachelor of Science degree in 2011 and his Master in Physician Assistant Studies from Findlay in 2013. He currently works in Fort Wayne, Indiana, in orthopedic surgery and sports medicine. Coach Ron Niekamp served 26 years as the head coach for the Oilers team, compiling a 598-185 record. In 2009, Coach Niekamp was named the National Association of Basketball Coaches National Coach of the Year, and in 2013, he was inducted into the Ohio Basketball Hall of Fame. In addition to winning a whole lot of basketball games, Coach Niekamp has helped to positively shape the lives of many, many, many young men, and his legacy endures through their lives. Please welcome our panel today.
Can everyone hear me? Yeah, speaking soft has never been a strong suit of mine, all right? Great to see a lot of familiar faces here. 10 years later, here we are. What have we learned? Have you thought about that? What have we learned from a championship basketball team that all of us, everyone seated here, can take into their everyday lives, with your work, with your friends, with your family? I think what you're going to learn in the next hour might surprise all of you. And if it's all right with you, I'm an informal guy. I'd like to go through with the rest of our panel and just get a brief opening statement from all of them. And you mentioned the 2009 National Championship. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? I'll start with you, Ken Vaupel.
Winning tradition, good to great. That's all I can say.
For me, that team was a family. We grinded every day. We had been through a lot the year before, and we had really bonded, and we sacrificed for each other, and that was a family. So,
for me, I inherited a successful basketball program here at Findlay. I was aware of the days of Don Reniger and knew many of his players. Of course, Jim Hottishell. Those people had an approach where it was about players, and I coached for 26 years and tried to live up to their standard, but to them, players were not commodities. They were young people that needed to be nurtured and taught and developed, and that's what a basketball program was about. So hopefully we lived up to that standard.
Oh, I'd certainly say that was the case, 36-0. Does anybody know who our first game was against that year? Oh, thank you. It was against Xavier. 20 years later, he's still throwing me under the bus. All right?
He's always trying to trick you.
Yeah. It was the only loss of the year. Xavier was fresh off the Elite Eight from the year before. Sean Miller, now the coach at Arizona, loaded with talent. Heck, they should have beat UCLA. They should have been in the Final Four the year before. Heavy favorite. They look at us and they're kind of chuckling, guffawing. Who are these guys? How'd they get here, on a John Deere? Yeah. I heard all the jokes. All the Xavier people were seated right behind me. And we took them to the brink, and they weren't laughing very hard. And I remember talking to Lee Roberts. I said, hey, tough loss. He looks at me and says, man, if we can hang with them, we can hang with anybody. I thought, remember you said that. And then they reeled off 36 straight wins. But the irony, and this is the next point I'd like all three of these gentlemen to cover, is how it ended and how it began were two terribly different things, and in a good way. They were ranked number one in the country. wire to wire. Never happened in Division II basketball. How many remember the game against Northwood in the first round of the GLIAC tournament? I see a hand up. I know it's 10 years. It's kind of difficult for me to remember it as well, but something happened in that game that I'll never forget, and I want all three of these gentlemen to address it. The sixth man of the team, perhaps the most talented substitute off the bench, was a young man named Tyler Sparks from Olmsted Falls. Could do many things: shoot, rebound, pass, dribble. Injures his knee. Done for the year. Our best player off the bench now. He's not there anymore. Had him all season, now he's not there. 7 points, 7 rebounds, just did a little of everything. He was a workhorse. And now he's done. So then this gentleman to my left had to shuffle the deck. Talk about next man up. Whether you're ready to take on the challenge or not. All of a sudden, Coach Niekamp was running a business, not just a basketball team. And I'd like to start with you, Mr. Vaupel, because there are a number of facilities you run in Ohio, Nebraska, Pennsylvania, and you have to mix and match personnel all the time. You have to deal with changes in personnel. Somebody is ill. Somebody decides to leave. Someone is relieved of their duties. And whether the person you're replacing them with is ready for it or not, you have to make those types of decisions every day. I guess basketball does parallel business, sir.
Oh, without question. I think it starts with what the University of Findlay really is. It's the foundation. It's just it's there. It's within the framework of just being a winner. Number one. Number two, great leadership, phenomenal leadership. And when they go to select people, selection is a major part of anything you do. And when you're recruiting, and I've always admired Coach Niekamp and even Charlie today, in that they don't just always select the most talented individuals. They select the talent that's right for this university, and the tradition, and the ability, as you stated, to step up when needed. I remember it clearly, and I can't even imagine all the worry probably from the coach's perspective, knowing that we had the Bellarmine mind game coming right back right after it, realizing 1 against 2, but those people and across your entire team, Nate, I'm sure you guys had a real solid little, hey, we're going to step up, we're going to make it happen. So I think it's just next man up, and in a winning tradition and a winning organization, that's what you do.
Yeah, and definitely from the player's perspective, first and foremost, we were devastated for Tyler. He would have started on any other team in the GLIAC that year. He was that good. But yeah, we all grinded, we all worked hard, and we were deep that year. And for us, that should be the role of your people, is to prepare yourself every day to take the next step in your journey as a player or as a worker, as an employee, to try to do your best every day, so that when your time comes and you're called upon, you can make things happen. And Tyler Evans stepped in, Michael Gunga stepped in, and we got big minutes out of those guys and stuff that they didn't always do, but it's because of how hard they worked and how well we were prepared by our coaching staff and everyone to when we inserted people in other positions, for them to do their job and do it well. So.
Do you want to know the secret? Because people have asked me this many times, and I don't even think I've told Charlie this, but an old coach many years ago told me this, and I think it's true. The secret to successful basketball coaching is keeping the 5 players who think you're an idiot away from the 5 players who haven't made up their mind yet. And there's a lot of truth to that. Let me make a note about Nate here, and I think my focus would be on leadership, and not necessarily my leadership, but how important it is to attract people that you think have the potential for leadership, number one, and secondly, to mentor them by putting a frame of mind where you don't put yourself first. My coaches at Miami used to say that, the players will get credit for the wins. I'll take responsibility for the losses. And that sounds pretty simple, but really it's not, believe me. But what you do is hopefully try to teach and give your players that kind of attitude so that they understand that when something bad happens or things don't turn out well, that it's important that you basically take responsibility yourself. Don't be pointing fingers, and look in the mirror first. Whether you're a coach or a player, if things don't go well and your team hasn't played well, that's what a leader does. Takes responsibility, look in the mirror first, and thereby you teach your younger players how to be leaders. And we may have had one of the best leaders that we've ever had in our program here in Nate, in terms of your older players teaching the younger players. Players will respond to their teammates much more than they will respond to coaches. Players will play hard for each other more so than playing hard for a coach. So if you can teach your older players, your juniors and seniors, to really understand what it means to be a leader and influence those younger players, you have a great chance of having what is really a team. And you all know, you're all basketball fans, and when you see a team on the floor that plays together so well, it's almost like harmony, it's like music, it's like something really, really special. And you know that these players are tuned in to each other. And that is for basketball fans, that's a beautiful thing to watch. And we've had some teams here that we could say were like that. Not all of them, but when you see that, you walk away saying, boy, they make it look so easy when it's really not. Basketball is a very difficult game to play. So,
Coach, I would just add, it still goes back to that environment, that culture that you've created here, and I think many of you do in your professional business lives. But you talked about that harmony, that chemistry. Every great organization has great team members, great employees, because they create that same competition that you're talking about, that challenge, that desire to be on the floor, if you will. My mentor many years ago used to always say, you're not worrying about why you're not playing, right? Because you should be competing to make sure you're playing.
Great expectations. How many of you seated here today, whether you're currently working, maybe you're retired, maybe you're in college, feel that the organization, the group that you belong to, is the very best in their industry? You're a banker, an insurance agent, work for a restaurant. How many of you feel that that organization that you work for right now is the very best at what it does? Quick show of hands. Nice. Oh, I know you're retired, sir. We covered that already. Okay. In case you're wondering, golf game's pretty good. I can give him that. All right. With great success comes great expectation. And all the success that this university has had through the years, and Ron was very eloquent in stating the gentleman that paved the road before him, the one that follows him. Oilers are ranked again this year. When you're good year in and year out, two things are going to happen. Number one, the rest of the world expects you to be good every year. And number two, you're going to get everybody's best shot the moment that basketball goes in the air. A lot of parallels between basketball and business. Ken, I'll start with you. Alfa-Green Supreme, leader in your industry. I'm sure there are other people in this country that can make dehydrated alfalfa meal and pellets, but you do it better, and you're convinced every morning that you do it better than anyone in the country. And I think the competition that is bred drives you to succeed. Your thoughts, sir?
Oh, without question. It always says, if you want others to be what you want them to be, it starts with me. And that's the commitment I've always tried to bring to it. And then recruiting talent. I mean, you want to hire the best. In order to be the best, you got to go search for the best. There's sometimes it's challenges. Sometimes there's opportunities. Things don't always fit, don't always work. But you got to keep reshaping, retooling, or as we said earlier, maybe substituting. You got to make some hard calls sometimes. And, to have a winning tradition, to have a winning organization, it doesn't mean you're always going to please everyone that's in that situation. It's just not going to happen. Great leaders are like great ducks. Sometimes it's just got to come off the back.
Yeah, and a testament to Coach Niekamp and Coach Ernson and these guys over the years is they did a great job recruiting players who would A, of all buy into the system, and B, of all cared for each other. And I think, as you build a team, those are two of the most important things when you're looking at players. Are they going to truly want to compete and play with each other and play for each other? And they're also, are they buying what you're selling as far as the product you want to put on the floor? And we had guys who, they'd throw punches at each other during the day, and then they'd go to dinner that night. We had great leaders on and off the court, and we were able to self-regulate, self-motivate each other to improve every day. And then when someone like Tyler Sparks goes down, the next person's ready, because that competition, that hard work, all that stuff breeds excellence in a program, and that's what Ron was able to do over the years.
I would comment on the program and what your thinking for a program is, and I would say that our program has always been, and before I was here, was built on long-term thinking, not short-term thinking. I know we live in a world where everything is short-term and instant gratification and so forth, but I think the approach where bringing in players that may have to be developed instead of just bringing in someone who's got the ability and skills, someone who fits the mold but maybe needs nurturing and developing and experience, and I think having a program that reflects the ideals of an academic institution. What's a better place to have an athletic program than an academic institution? And that those things should merge, and your players should be able to have an academic life, an athletic life, a social life, where they do graduate, being people that understand maybe things a little better than they did when they came to the university. So I think for us in our program, and our thinking was long-term. And I think the result is, and I know we're talking so much about this individual team here today, but maybe just as astonishing is that, we've had like 35 straight winning seasons. I don't know anyone in the country that can say that. 35 straight winning seasons, going way back to the days with Jim Hyde. That's like crazy to think of that. But I look back, and the thing that struck me immediately after the game, because I'd been around here for a long time, and what struck me was all of the guys that helped us get to that point. Because you just don't go and win a national championship. You have to be in position. You have to be positioned for success. It doesn't smack you in the face. And it took a long time, and a lot of players who really sacrificed, and a lot of them are here today, former players, who were all part of that one step on the ladder. Your program gets a little bit better, you're able to recruit a little bit better player, and then your program gets a little bit better, and you're able to recruit a little bit better player. And over a long period of time, I think that consistency and the long-term thinking really allowed us to get to the point where we became a player on the national stage, not just a local good program, but a program that I think is recognized, throughout the country as a quality program. And that's really what we talked about with our players, we want to be a quality program. We didn't really necessarily talk about this championship or that championship. We wanted to have a quality program. So.
Do you ever have to deviate from your game plan? I think we all do one time or another. And I'll never forget this, and this really kind of put things in perspective for me on March 28th, 2009. I'm cutting my pregame show with this gentleman seated immediately to my left, and I'm like, yeah, this is it. Stakes ain't any higher than what they are this afternoon. What am I going to ask him? Well, I thought about it. I asked him the same thing I ask him before every game. How are we going to win? What do we need to do? And he said something to me I'll never forget. Well, we got to treat this like another game. Let's just take 5 guys, go out there, play for 40 minutes, and see who's ahead at the end of the game. Damn. Wow. Your tip-off's next. All right. And I think that's one of the reasons why those kids were there. You have a game plan, you have to execute it. And yeah, Ken, I understand you tweak it from time to time. In business, you have to. But getting all of them to buy in and get all the oars to row in the same direction, that's very hard in coaching, and I think it would be even harder in business.
I think we all know it is. When you row, you got to go, and you got to go and grow, and that's what you got to do. I think Coach hit it earlier. It's about the long-term strategy. It's not the short-term gratification. In order to gain, you got to make mistakes. You're going to, you know. I always use the reference when you go to a team and you practice, and you know you got somebody that's making a turnover or making a bad pass. You don't take him off to the side and say, "Hey, by the way, you need to quit doing that." You know what you do? You use the court as an opportunity to teach others. Sometimes people don't always understand it. Sometimes they don't always like the manner in which you teach. But the reality is you're teaching. You're not just teaching an individual, you're teaching an organization. And I think at the end of the day, I think Nate hit it right on the head. It's when people buy in. It's when people want to win. And most importantly, they are willing to give it all, 100% to make it work.
Yeah, we deviated from our game plan often. Josh Bostic was our best player, no secret. Josh was supposedly a good defender, but Josh was also a hack. And a solid 1/3 of the biggest games of my 2 years with Josh, he was either fouled out or sitting on the bench for most of the game. So when your game plan revolves around getting Josh isolations and getting him touches and his butt sitting on the bench because he can't quit fouling, you deviate. And the big thing for us was accountability and accountability to each other. And the next man up mentality was very true for us. And one person gets in foul trouble, even if he's the Division II National Player of the Year that year, arguably the best player to ever play here. That accountability of everyone else to the team and to each other was always there. And we took pride in stepping up when the time came. If Coach called your number, or if you got a chance to have the big shot, that was something we all took pride in. We all wanted it. I tell Marcus every time I see him, I'm still mad he didn't pass me that ball for that game winner in the national championship. I was open too.
Nate, if I remember, you were always open.
But it really comes back to that accountability. Just because things don't go the way you want, or things aren't working out the way you want them to. That accountability, the rest of the team to step up and be there for each other and to help each other out. I think that's a big key for whether it's a basketball team or a business, for everyone to continue to do their jobs and to do them as best they can, if not better.
Yeah, I would certainly agree. A couple things I would mention is that I always read a lot, still enjoyed reading a lot. And a couple of books that I ran across in my coaching career, one was Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson was a legendary coach of the Chicago Bulls and later the Lakers. And he has several books out, but one of his early ones was called Sacred Hoops. And if you ever want an interesting read by an interesting guy, Sacred Hoops is about his career in basketball and his ideas about coaching. And to try to sum it up, I think his word was selflessness. And basketball is a game where everyone touches the ball at some point or another, and people have to make so many quick decisions, but it's that selflessness that you want, and that was so important for him. He felt in winning his, 6 or 7 or 8 NBA championships. And I think another book that Jonathan Maxwell had a book out called The Speed of Trust, and he talked about trust being a function of competence and integrity, and that when you have trust, everything works so much faster and better and more efficiently. And I think that's true in coaching because, players will follow if they trust you, if they trust that you are competent and know what you're doing and can prove that you're heading in the right direction, and that that you have character and that you're fair, basically. And I think players will accept your decisions because you have to decide who plays, who has to sit the bench, how much you play, and that's not always easy for players to handle. But if they feel like you're fair, they'll accept that. So I think that fostering trust as a coach, as a leader, is really, really important. But that's a long process, and any relationship that you have is based on trust. So trying to somehow, as a leader, as a coach, trying to develop and enhance that trust in your players is really, really important.
People certainly remember the things on the surface about this team. 36-0. Didn't lose a regular season game. Ranked number 1 at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. National Player of the Year. 3 or 4 gentlemen all GLIAC. Dana Scholar ends up hitting the winning shot in the national championship game. 3 of the last 4 games went to overtime to decide a winner. Almost the 4th one, Central Missouri State, we came pretty close to going to overtime in that one as well. So they see the accomplishment. What people don't see are some of the struggles that they went through to get there. And having broadcast all 36 of those games, there were a few nights where that goose egg on the right side of the ledger almost burst. Mid-February, we're up in beautiful Sault Ste. Marie, which in the middle of February is just absolutely wonderful. At Lake State, Coach Hettinger had a nice team, had a young man named Chris Cool. Had this big mustache, looked like the last of the Keystone Cops, okay? And they're playing us heads up the whole game. About 3 minutes left to go, we're down 2. On the road, we don't travel very well to Lake State. There aren't thousands of Oiler fans that are making that bus trip. But we have to hit 8 consecutive foul shots in the last 2 minutes of that game to come from behind to win. And we say, well, it's 1 loss. Had we lost that game, we'd have never hosted the regional at Croy Center. That's how nip and tuck the month of February and March was for this program. CW Post, Lee Roberts had to step up and be a hero. In the regional finals, Josh Bostic, 37, was throwing in baskets from the parking lot of Croy Center. And then the semifinal game, Central Missouri State, was Marcus Parker that had to step up in the second half. And of course, we all know about the championship game and Tyler Evans' big shot. But my point is, if you look beyond the surface, we were ever so close to falling off the mountaintop. And that happens every day in business and in life. Gentlemen, take it away.
Well, I'm kind of reminded, maybe a little bit away from business, but we had the pleasure of going up for the entire week, finally, and we took a limo coach up from Findlay to the Springfield, and in our journey, our coach kind of broke down, and we're sitting there in the middle of this high-paced, high-traffic area. We happened to have one of the players at the time, unfortunately, who wasn't quite eligible, couldn't travel with the team, Mr. Marsden, I believe, Rob, right? And there was a great big university reception planned, and we didn't want Rob to miss it. We wanted him to be a part of it. So we make a call to a guy named Mr. Drew Mahalik, and I said, Drew, we got a problem. He goes, what's your problem? I said, we got to get this player to this reception. So Drew comes pulling up with another friend, with the mayor, of course. Now you got one tall person, now you add a Rob, another big tall person, and put them in a prism.
Drew's not the tall person.
But the funny part about the conclusion of the story is this. Everyone should appreciate AAA because they never knew in the world you could get 15 people by calling AAA and get a stretch limo that quick. It happens. But the day before the championship game, again, things that just happened. The Evans family, we never met them. I mean, I knew them, but I didn't know them. We were taking our group into Boston to eat some seafood. They were thinking about going. I said, hop in, we're going. And they went with us. Isn't it amazing? The guy that replaced Tyler in the starting lineup to my right, his family's right there on that bus. And it was so surreal the next day when that biscuit, as you used to call it,
Yes, sir.
went through that hoop. It was surreal and really celebratory.
Yeah, and when I think back on, as Jim touched on, some of the brutal games we had, traveling. Those of you guys that don't know, going to Lake State's it's horrible. It's miserable. Their fans are miserable. It's freezing cold there. They give you these crappy balls to play with. It's just terrible. And
Because you couldn't shoot them very well.
I think I made all 8 of those free throws at one night. But once again, Bostic was fouled out. So, but yeah, these things happen in life every day. Things don't go the way you want them, and the resiliency of that team, the way we bonded together. Coach was great at X's and O's, but the thing he did best was manage us as personalities and as individuals. And sometimes that was just get out of our way too. And we ran a lot of motion offense that year, and where he let us decide what we wanted to do. And I think with the team we had and the chemistry we had, that was one of the best things he could have done, was let us get out there, let Marcus get the ball, let Josh get the ball, let us play off each other, pick for each other, move without the ball. And that ability, that resiliency, though, and those tough situations, Lake State, Wayne State, Wayne State's brutal too. I mean, going up there, you're going to get homered. They're going to physically, mentally abuse you. And that team was able to, we always bonded together. We always fought for each other, and we had the same goal in mind, and that was to win at all costs. And I think that's the key here, is getting like-minded individuals here that want to do everything they can to help each other succeed.
Playing on the road. I mean, it's especially going to those Upper Peninsula games. It's hard to describe to people. We would travel to Michigan Tech, for example. That's a 13-hour bus ride. Both the men's and women's team is on the bus, so we stop 2 or 3 times. 2-lane roads about half the way, snowing in January. And then trying to, play at a very high level against very good basketball teams. So the challenge, talk about a challenge, winning on the road, really no matter where it's at, anywhere is in basketball is a really, really difficult, but it's also the most rewarding things to be able to go on the road and get wins. And I look at that season, it's interesting. We played Grand Valley 4 times that year. I mean, who wants to play a good team like Grand Valley 4 times? We played them, in those days, we played round robin in the GLIAC, so we played everyone twice. Then, and I'm not a fan of conference tournaments, so why do you have a conference tournament if you've played everybody twice during the regular season? Now you have a conference tournament, give them a chance to beat you again, which never made any sense to me. And then, because you're in the same region, you turn around and play them the first round of the regional game. It's like, this was crazy. And if people might remember that Grand Valley knocked us out of the regional finals the year before, and they had Callistus Ezekwu, who I think was one of the most dominant players that I've ever saw in that conference, and we had a really good team, and we could not beat them. They beat us 3 times. We only had 5 losses that year. They beat us 3 times, and I thought, man, that team's going to win the national championship. Well, they went up and got beat the first round of the Elite 8. So, I mean, it's really difficult to go on the road, whether it's a neutral site or any site. And, the shooting lines are different, the lights are different, everything is different. And plus, in terms of this national championship, we'd been on the road for almost a week. So, you might recall that second half of that national championship game got pretty ugly.
It was ugly.
That was really ugly. And, the game that probably should have been nationally televised was the first round game with CW Post. That was a phenomenal game. I don't know, 89-86 or something like that. And playing 3 games, the format, I think they've changed that somewhat, but playing 3 games in 4 days is putting a lot of stress on your players. And if you look at our shooting chart for the second half of the championship game, it was abysmal. But I think our players were just kind of
Tired.
Tired. Maybe for the first time all year, we began playing not to lose instead of playing to win, and that pressure of being number one really kind of set in. But somehow, as Charlie, we used to say, don't tell me how rough the seas are. Just bring the ship in. You know, just get it done. Somehow we did. I don't know how, but we did. We did.
I think all of us are here today. We have a lot in common, and the love of the game of basketball certainly brings us all here this morning on this occasion. And it's certainly important to acknowledge it. But I think it's equally as important not to over-acknowledge it. And here's why. We're all fans of Oiler basketball, but before that, we're all fans and supporters of the University of Findlay, right? I'm pretty sure when our founding fathers opened this institution in the late 1800s, didn't open up the University of Findlay to turn it into a basketball powerhouse. They opened it as a means of education for young people to better their own lives. And sometimes I think that gets lost in college athletics. Ron often reminds me of it when we're together. Tricia Cullip, who I work with at the University of Toledo, wonderful young lady, reminds me of that all the time. Because without that college education, I don't know if the four of us are sitting here right now, gentlemen. And frankly, I realize it's Charlie's job to come in and recruit the finest basketball talent he can get his hands on. But at the end of the day, Charlie Ernst might be directly responsible for wins and losses as a head coach, but I think Charlie Ernst is more responsible about preparing the 13 young men in his care to be productive citizens and all to graduate from the University of Findlay. And I'm sorry, gentlemen, we may have to agree to disagree on this one, but college athletics has become such big business today. I see this at the Division I level up at UT, and sometimes it makes me very ill. You're in college to get a degree and prepare for a job for the rest of your life. Sometimes I think that's been lost, guys.
Well, you know, it's kind of funny or ironic how you go through life. And you know, I did a lot of night school, and I'm blessed to have kind of been successful sometimes despite some of my my challenges. But character, it's something, you know, we're pleased to continue to attract good young talent, especially University of Findlay talent. And we've got some good ones, and we recently had another one come to our aid. But in doing so, I would just say this: it's like in the book Extreme Ownership. What do you do if you don't prepare to the ultimate? You lose your life. Well, in our life, it's about our families, our friends, and the people and the universities and the communities you live in. So I always say, get prepared, go to the extreme.
Yeah, I mean, I think for our players sitting in here today, I mean, you guys need to seriously look at yourselves and take full advantage of this opportunity you have to get a great degree from a great institution. I mean, it's not going to be easy. It's going to suck it sometimes, honestly. I mean, that year we won the national championship. Tyler Niekamp was our grad assistant that year. As I was struggling to take cell and molecular biology and microbiology and all this garbage classes in the middle of the year. But he reminded me that, you know, we actually were gone. We traveled so much that year, we missed more classes than we were on campus for. I mean, and that's not even sleeping in past, you know, just sleeping in. We were just gone. We were gone, and, you know, and it's tough, but they're going to surround you with people and resources to help you, and you guys need to take advantage of them and definitely take advantage of the opportunity you have to get a free education here and use that as you go forward in life. Because let's be honest, I played with some really, really good players here. None of them are making millions and millions of dollars playing basketball, and that's reality. I mean, it's not to discredit any of you guys. I'm sure you guys are all really good. Probably still can't guard me pretty good still. But take advantage of your opportunity here to get the degree you want to get. So
he brings up the word internal competition.
Well, motivation.
Al McGuire, longtime coach at Marquette, used to say, and I think trying to keep things in perspective, you know, it's a coffee break, guys. This is just a short break in your lives, and it's not going to last very long. And I'm reminded so often when I get together with former players and groups of guys, and we get late into the night and they're telling stories, they almost never talk about games that we won or lost. You know, all that's forgotten. It's always the funny things that happened, the things they remember about their friends, the things that happened that are peculiar, trying to mimic the coach in the locker room when he's not around, and all those kinds of things that, so it's those relationships. And I think that one of the things that I know Charlie and myself are most proud of is that these guys stay close and stay in contact with each other, and they stay loyal to the university, and that's the way it's supposed to be. So,
I think we all love the game of basketball, and I think it mirrors life in a whole lot of ways. God knows I've loved it for 30 years at the high school level and at the college level in this part of Ohio. You got great basketball here. I love all the trimmings that go with it. You know, being on the radio and acting like a moron night in and night out and being able to get paid for it, okay? Doesn't always happen in the working world. The rings are nice, the traveling, you know, getting to visit with the fans are wonderful, but you're spot on, because at the end of the day, the greatest thing that has ever happened to me, University of Findlay basketball might make the top 5. The greatest thing that's ever happened to me is being Will Heller's father. And as you get older in this world, and I tell young people that are going into the media business about this all the time, 5 years I want to be on ESPN, 5 years I want to be in Fox Sports. 5 years from now, I hope to God I'm not in the obituary column, all right? The perspective, the competition, the camaraderie, all of that is wonderful. Don't ever lose sight of the big picture. That's what I tell the young people that are coming into the radio and television business today. I know, and I'm so grateful to the 3 of you for sharing your legitimate thoughts. I'd like to open it up if anyone here in the audience, we have 2 microphones set up here, and if you have questions for our esteemed panel, and yes, I said esteemed, okay, that's kind of a big word for my vocabulary, please come on up to either of the microphones, and these gentlemen, I'm sure, would be thrilled to answer any questions you might have.
And maybe programs are looking at you to go to the next level. I guess, was that true, and why did you stick around?
I did have some opportunities, but I would just say this, that, you know, the great thing about places like this is you can have a program the way you want it to be, the way you think it should be. I'm not so sure you can do that at other places. And maybe the opportunities I had weren't the, I didn't want to redo or rebuild a program somewhere. Because, you know, you think about long term, you know, I was almost 60 by the time we won the national championship, and I wasn't going to go someplace and think long term, wait till I'm 80 before we become successful or something like that. But so I didn't seriously consider, maybe there might have been 1 or 2 positions I might have considered, but those weren't available or the timing wasn't right. So, but I've never regretted that. I've never for a moment regretted, I played Division I basketball. I know what the rigors and, you know, the good and the bad and the ugly of all that. And it was a great experience for me. I was at a great place. But most important for me, I was around really professional people. And I got the chance to work with, I didn't realize it at the time how good those people were until later in my life, that I look back and I say, man, I was awfully lucky to get a chance to be around these people. So,
Coach, I'd just add to that, you know, I look around the young players, the young people that are in the room, you know, he talked about a place where he could be comfortable. You know, that's some of the selection of choices you're going to have, whether you want to go into a larger organization, a smaller, more private organization. For myself, you know, similar to what he shared, I came here from Wichita, Kansas, coming out of the large corporate conglomerate culture my entire life, and I reorganized a private company right here in Northwest Ohio, and we've been very blessed to have grown. We actually had to go west again. We had to return to our roots, and all I would say is, I think I would challenge anyone and everyone to what he said. Find the right environment for you, because within the environment, you'll find everything you're looking for, and you can last and enjoy forever.
Let me pile on here for just a quick sec. No, please, come on up, sir. Please, we're interactive here at Camp Run Amok. Come on up, okay?
Following Jeff's question a little bit on phone calls, two questions. One, did you get a call from Coach Knight? Secondly, how is the community? You know, I talk about our community. I'm very proud to be here. How did the community play into your decisions to end your career, retire your career at Ohio University?
Chuck, that's a great point. And, Coach Knight, interesting. Like he was at Army when I was in high school, and I did get recruited by Army, and we did get a chance to play against Coach Knight when I was in college so he was the forward thinker in those days. But and your other question was, Chuck. The community, yeah. That was not, you know, I had played, when I was a high school coach for 13 years, and I had players that played at Findlay before I came here. And when I was at Lima Senior, we played Findlay High School. I knew Findlay was a very good basketball town. I knew that this was a place that people would support a good program, and I was very fortunate. All four of my kids went to Findlay City Schools and had great experiences and are doing very, very well. Now, my wife and I have 4 grandsons in the school district and playing, yeah, I'm a travel coach now, so. But this has been a great place for us. It's been, and the friends, almost 2 or 3 times a week I'll run into a former player somewhere. I saw Jim Thompson the other night just on campus here, and it's great. It's great to see how they're doing and how they're being successful and those sorts of things. So it's been very rewarding.
I'm going to tell this story. I was talking to Mrs. Niekamp after I graduated, after you had retired. He was coaching upward basketball that next year. And I was in grad school, and I was asking Doris how it was going, and he said, he's frustrated. He's trying to draw plays up on his clipboard. He's just slapping it around, and he's like slapping the kids' hands. They're just playing grab ass. They can't get them to do what they want. And I thought, this is perfect. This is perfect.
Good morning, Coach.
Hi, John.
You know, when the season started, as every season started that year, we had expectations and hopes of, winning the conference, etc. We went down and scrimmaged that team down in Columbus. And, we all went down there thinking, boy, how are we going to do? And we whooped them pretty good. I mean, they were never really in the game. And as a coach, how did you approach that afterwards? You got some kids that just knocked off a quality Division I program, and all of a sudden you knock them off, and your guys you're thinking, they may think they're pretty good.
We got our asses beat by Ashland.
Remember that.
How would you approach? What was your approach after that game?
Well, that was actually the year before our national championship, but we did go down. It's one of the things I still wonder if that was a dream, that we went down to Schottenstein Center and knocked off Ohio State. I said, you got to be kidding me. Interestingly enough, one of our star players was riding the bench, I suspended him for 4 games for activity unbecoming a basketball player, I guess I should say. But so we did get beat by Ashland. That sort of brought us back down to earth pretty fast. The national championship year, and I'll never forget this, because my wife and I were in Atlanta. Our daughter played volleyball at Georgia Tech, and we were getting ready to watch a game, and Dave, our SID, called me on the phone and said, Coach, your team's ranked #1 in the preseason poll. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know if any coach really wants that, because as John said, he's a player, and you don't want your players thinking that maybe it's already done. It's, you want them to be hungry and think about getting better and making strides. And so that was remarkable that we were number one the entire season, because you see what happens in sports today, whether it's football, basketball, team gets ranked number one, what's the next thing that happens? Boom, they get beat by the next opponent. So for this group of guys to be able to keep that in perspective, but I think this, and I go back to 2 years prior to that, and you weren't here yet, but those seniors were sophomores. We had a very good team, and we got beat in the regional semifinals at home by Northern Kentucky. I think we were like 29-1, and I'm not sure if we were ranked number one or not, but that was. I think that those guys remembered that game, and the fact that, all the media, all the hype, all the ratings, that stuff really doesn't amount to that much. It's really, you got to prove it every day. So I give them a lot of credit for doing something that I don't think has been done since, and has not been done very often by any team at any level to go. I mean, winning a national championship is one thing. There's a national champion every year. But going 36-0, that's like crazy. That's really off the charts. So I give those guys a lot of credit, Nate, and and the guys in the locker room. Well, we didn't go in the locker room with our players after the game, maybe, but that was their place, and it was those players set the terms for how we practiced each day and the approach we took to each game, and the attitude, and keeping everybody on the straight and narrow. So that was pretty special. So,
Got time for one more question from the audience?
I can't pass this up. Ron Niekamp and I had an association. I was an academic dean, and Ron was the basketball coach and athletic director and reported to me. There was never one time when I had to question his values. Some of the really tough decisions that he would come to me about, he'd already talked about it 10 times with someone else. I never doubted your core values and your ability to make tough decisions about who should not be playing. And you would ask my opinion, but you always had already made it. And I just think that's a tremendous quality, because we all know and have seen coaches that don't necessarily have the best ethical standards. So on a lighter note, you and I both had 3 daughters, and I'd like for you to comment on their effect on you as a coach, because I know how my 3 daughters affected me. They made me a better person, and I'm sure that your daughters made the same, because they were athletically inclined.
Yeah, that's so true, and I think Ed, we're from an age when there were no sports for women, basically, and it was a change that occurred, and really during our time here, and those changes were for the good, and I think our daughters. I grew up with 8 brothers, so I didn't quite get it in terms of I still don't get it. They tell me that. I don't know. I get guys, I know what but, my oldest daughter went, I think maybe since the 7th grade, and after a game I was critiquing her, and all of a sudden she was crying. I thought, oh man, this isn't going to work, I just need to keep my mouth shut. So that's what I did most of the time. But I will say this, that's a really good question. They have an award at Findlay High School called the Archie Griffin Award, which goes to one athlete each year who displays sportsmanship, and I have 3 daughters' names on that plaque at Findlay High School, so I'm very proud of that.
Folks, that's pretty much going to wrap up our panel portion of the program. Dr. Ladd, if you would, please.
You all were amazing. And Jim, you just did a fantastic job. with your questions and pulling out the essence of leadership, which is what our Fridays at Findlay series is all about. So please join me in giving them one more round of applause. I'm sure that they'll hang around for a little bit afterward to answer any individual questions. I do have several very brief announcements. At many of your tables, you see these absolutely adorable little Derek the Oiler mementos made available by our town and campus support group. They are only $5, perfect for a stocking stuffer or to just set up at your kitchen windowsill or in your office, etc. So if you want one, see Barb Myers on your way out at the registration table. Barb, thank you so much for coordinating this. We appreciate it. And enjoy that. A couple other things. On your table are feedback cards. They look like this. We really, really appreciate when you fill these out, letting us know what you enjoyed about the program, if there's anything you think could be done differently, and any suggestions on future topics and or speakers. To that point, again, January 25th, we live in a global world and economy today. Come hear Dr. Julia Sloan on cross-cultural communication. We'll look forward to seeing you then. Let's see. I mentioned First Oiler home basketball, November 17th, so a reminder of that. Dr. Freed, where is Dr. Freed? Right here. Dr. Freed was president when the championship team played and in the years prior to that. And obviously, leadership begins at the top and in the people who fill the positions and the support. So Dr. Freed, definitely wanted to recognize you, and thank you for coming. Appreciate that very much. One thing I want to say, and Dr. Erner referenced, but I hadn't been here very long, and we did exhibition games down at Dayton against the Flyers. They take their basketball pretty seriously, right? And against Wright State. And Coach Ernst came and took the time to speak to our alumni parent and friend reception just prior to one of the games, brought all the players with him. I couldn't believe that. When he was introducing them, I was struck by, first off, he seemed to know everybody's grade point, and I thought, oh my goodness, he's announcing their grade points in front of everyone. This could get potentially embarrassing, but it wasn't. And so-and-so, now next year he'll be going on to med school, so-and-so, physical therapy, etc. So I asked him afterward, I said, you know, Charlie, I've worked with a lot of coaches through the years. I know that basketball among the NCAA sports has the lowest graduation rate. How do we do at Findlay? He said, gosh, that's a good question. I'll have to go back and check the files. Well, he went back, 20-some years, and the graduation rate within 6 years was well over 90%, which is incredible. So hats off to both of you and your predecessors, because truly amazing and outstanding. So I think that pretty much wraps up where we are and our reminders, and we wish everyone a wonderful Thanksgiving. Again, pay attention to your mailboxes. We can't recruit great players and great coaches without your support. So thank you so much for coming, and I have gifts for each of you on the panel following, okay? Thank you so much.